amazing, the spectacular John Noderman!
And my assistant, Josh Nichols.
Wow. I started to intro myself there, and then you... I mean, this is the first time...
I had to walk all over it. It's all
is
about misdirection, Josh.
This is the first time that you've ever said my name in our act. Like, usually you make me say it myself. I feel like I've come a long way. We're talking about magic.
You've grown.
We're talking about magic. And the amazing, the spectacular illusionist, John Oderman and Josh Nichols. So, John, magic. It's kind of a broad theme. Because, I mean, when people think magic, I think recently they probably think about, like, Harry Potter and fantasy world and things like that. We're talking about, like, magicians. We're talking about, like...
David Copperfield.
Yeah, David Copperfield. Everything from Houdini to Copperfield
David Blaine.
David Blaine. Maybe Chris Angel, I guess. You could probably consider him.
The Mind Freak.
The Mind Freak. Do you... On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you regurgitate when you are confronted with the word magic, and 10 being... you're a magic groupie and you follow around magicians show to show. Where are you on the scale of liking magic?
Somewhere in the middle.
Like a 5?
6 or 7.
Okay, so more...
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm a fan of magic.
So, what is it about magic that you like?
Well, here's the thing about magic, though. Like, I think you have to kind of, like, group in illusionists with the magic. Because, I mean, if magic was real and it existed... that'd be really scary. If true magic existed. I mean, we're talking more of like the misdirection illusionist guys that are able to do some really cool stuff, but it's not really like real magic to the purest definition of the word.
Well, and
you know what I mean by that? You understand what I mean by that? Like,
yeah. Well, I think there's a distinction that we should make real quick. And I don't know how versed you are in the magic world. I don't get really into the history of it too deep, but I am fond of certain magicians. I think David Copperfield is one of the best overall stage illusionists. I mean, he's got some really cool effects. I think David Blaine revolutionized magic in a way with street magic and close-up magic, at least popularizing it. But I really respect the opinions of Penn and Teller as magicians as far as their stance on magic and not conning people. And really I think a lot of their viewpoints and opinions came from the amazing Randi. James Randi was a magician back in the day, and he got involved with debunking and exposing people who said that they were magicians or that they were mentalists, or that they could read people's minds or talk to the dead, and he exposed them for being frauds.
Seems like you've got like a lot of expertise in this area. Like, it sounds like you're maybe at like a 8 or a 9, or maybe even a 10.
I kind of respect logic. I respect logic, and I expect people who do things for moral reasons.
A good magic trick is kind of there's an engineering element to it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, magic is something. It has, it's got that showmanship. It's got sleight of hand or illusion or some sort of mechanic. Some of it is engineered. Even David Copperfield, I mean, has patents on the technologies that he created for drugs. Mm-hmm. I want to do this trick, and literally the way to do it is not invented yet. I will patent technology to do it. I mean, that is extreme engineering. But one of the tenets
like creating a magic box.
Like creating a magic box?
Yeah, because you're a magician.
Yeah.
And you can create a box that's magic, and then patent it.
That kind of true. Actually, David
nobody knows how he made it.
Well, once the patents get released.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So, for instance,
the patent is filed.
One of his inventions and his really astounding tricks was one of his specials. He said that when he was a little kid, he always wanted to fly, and he said, "Today I'm going to fly on stage." And so they levitated him, and they did some traditional tricks with rings around his body, where it was an optical illusion, and then you would think, okay, he's still on wires. And they put him in a glass box and closed the lid, and he was flying inside the box with the closed lid. Well, he had invented a technology wiring that was so thin and transparent. Instead of having one giant wire holding him up, he had thousands of small wires, and you couldn't detect them and see them, and the box closed around it, and it worked. He was able to suspend himself. But again, those patents come out. But he did some really cool stuff. Now, back to the whole Amazing Randy thing. He created the James Randi Foundation, and he offers, I think it's $1 million now, that if anyone can prove that they are psychic or can read the thoughts of people or can do anything supernatural, contact the dead, he will write you a check for $1 million. And they set up a test, and they have done these tests.
Okay,
over
I'm
decades.
familiar with this guy. Sure.
Yeah, and they have done these tests over decades, and they set up certain tenets. They're like, okay, if you're saying that you can do it this way, we're going to set up a couple parameters so that we don't get a false positive. And then you have this statistical chance. I, as a layman, could do this statistically within this number of times, and they have to repeat that. And every time they do it, they're not able to accomplish the test, but they always say, well, the test was faulty because, the cardboard that was used to cover the object, had acidic element. They'll come up with some reason.
Yeah.
But the whole point I was trying to make as far as magic goes is they basically say that you shouldn't con people. When Penn and Teller do an act, by them coming out and saying, we're magicians, we're doing fake illusions, we are not real wizards, enjoy the show. They let you know that they're not real. They don't come out and say, I have been gifted this ability. And I think in a way...
That's true. There isn't like the fraud element. Like that you're not... you're going in with both eyes open.
Exactly. And I think David Copperfield, even in a sense, and it doesn't bother me when it's not extreme. David Copperfield has been known as a magician. But when he's on TV, he's saying, as a little kid, I wanted to fly, and now tonight I can fly. That's adding a story element that I think is okay. I don't think he's trying to capitalize upon really making people think he can fly. It's an illusion. And I think that's a distinct difference when people are trying to use magic or mentalism or power to trick people and try to get their wealth or riches and those types of things. And, one of the people that they exposed was one of those kind of televangelist, priests that were healing people.
Yeah.
And they brought in radio equipment that was basically able to intercept the preacher's wife feeding him the names and information of people over a headset.
Okay.
And they caught him and were able to expose that. And I know that that's getting into religion, but
was he really healing people though?
No. Well, according
were they plants
to what they found.
or what?
No, a lot of times they had them fill out cards before the show saying, these are my ailments, and this is this, and that's that. Or they probably could have had plants that sometimes that would get up and walk or this and that. Or and I don't know specifically with that guy. I think I've heard of other instances of this happening where they would put someone, for instance, in a wheelchair who had some mobility issues and said, oh, well, let me go ahead and wheel you to your seat. And they presented them as though they couldn't walk. Like, they alluded to the fact, like, you're going to get up and you're going to walk. But really, they could walk. And just by the way they talked, it made it seem like they couldn't. And when they got up, they're like, I'm standing. I can always stand. And nobody in the crowd says, well, wait a minute. Tell me more about it. They can walk. So that is the tenets of, I think, of a lot of magicians.
You want to see a magic trick? Let's heal Stephen Hawking.
Wow.
Yeah. That'd be magical.
That would be magical. So I guess I set that base and that little background because I, in some ways, judge magic kind of based on those parameters a little bit as well. I went to see a Chris Angel show in Las Vegas, and I thought his magic was poor. I mean, we could see the trapdoory type elements. We could see the switching of his body double very overtly, and he didn't have the quality of magic for a stage show. On TV, I think it's a lot about camera angles and plants and reshoots and things like that, in my opinion. And I just don't think that he's as magical Like, he's not as much an illusionist. It almost seems like he's passing it off as, I'm real. I'm the mind freak.
Yeah, and the Chris Angel stuff, does he do a ton of live stuff?
Really, the Vegas stuff, I think, is his, jump into live stuff. And according to the TV shows, the things are live, but they're filming it.
Yeah.
But they have angles and things that they're able to kind of switch around. So, editing and things like that.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
There's a great example. I think it was America's Got Talent and a couple of those shows. They have this video of a guy sawing someone in half, and it's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. When you watch the America's Got Talent, I could not figure out how they did it. Period. And then you see the uncut version of it where they took out the part where the trick actually happens.
Okay.
The part that if you saw it, you'd be like, yep, that's how they did it.
Yeah.
That part was removed.
Oh, so they cut it from the show.
They cut the angle, or they didn't have that little... It was a 5-second little piece. You didn't really notice it.
Yep.
And I saw another video of that same trick being performed by the same people at a different place, and they filmed it's an entirety. And it was not as amazing. So I think there is some trickery and foolery that can happen with angles, even though they're not trying to purposefully hide something. They hide some of the stuff that the layman might not miss, but a person who's a little bit more trained would see and say, oh, wait a minute, that's how they did that. So I think that's a little deceitful. So, like, I didn't really get into Chris Angel. Like, it didn't work for me. Whereas David Blaine did some stuff with close-up magic. I think it was great illusions, but he also kind of had that, like, I'm real. I can really do this.
Yeah.
I'm a demon from, like, the depths. I don't know.
David Blaine really did pull out, like, he played that paranormal, supernatural power card a lot.
So I don't know how much of a character is allowed before you become unethical, because I don't think he was squeezing money out of people, by saying, "Oh, I'm paranormal. I'm going to do this, and you'll give me money because I did it specifically for you." It was a show or a performance. So again, I even think that is questionable on the line of exit. I don't think it's as unethical as maybe James Randi or Penn and Teller or something. I think personally. I really struggle with magic, the recent David Blaney kind of stuff. Like, I'm going to trap myself in a sandwich for 40 years. What?
or like the freezing. That's not really a magic.
That's
not really a magic trick, because anybody could do that.
Well, here's the thing. Not really. Because these tests of endurance are not something the human body can accomplish. But...
Yeah, but how much support staff does he have, like, teaching him how to stay alive? I mean, to me,
or how much of it is fake? He's got a tube that feeds oxygen to him, so he didn't spend his 6 days underwater. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. There are things that are Olympic athletes do things that defy things the human body are normally able to accomplish.
Yes.
But even they can't do some of the things that magicians are claiming to do it, because it's an illusion and they're creating an effect.
Well,
and I think people kind of forget, and they're like, and I don't think that's a particularly interesting trick. If, for instance, I said, John, I'm going to show you a card trick. Pick a card, any card, and you grab a card, and I say, okay, now I'm going to set this deck of cards on the corner of the table, and we're going to wait here for 6 days, and then I'm going to find your card. Like, it's kind of a boring illusion. It's so long.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what? Like, give me
You're
something
not doing
more
anything,
impact and has a little bit more... Why not make it 100 days instead of 6? Why not say come back 3 years from now?
Why not bury the deck of cards in the dirt for 80 years and come back?
There's
and your child will reveal what my card was.
A lot of it has to do with the speed and the misdirection and not showing the trick twice, or showing the trick twice but having a second version of it.
Now, what would you say is like your favorite magic trick of all time or illusion?
I love.
No, and you've been to Vegas a lot more than I have, so you've probably seen a lot more live magic shows than I have.
Yeah.
But
okay, I'm going to say that Penn and Teller do a lot of not artsy fartsy illusions, but they do a lot of illusions that have a lot of narrative behind it, or they have a little bit more of a nuance to it, and those are great. But as far as like bang up illusions, the one that I pull out my phone and show people on YouTube is David Copperfield's laser illusion.
Okay.
By far the most phenomenal trick I've ever watched on like a screen. I've never seen it live, but it was incredible, and I love it, love it, love it. And I think that's one that I show people because I show them how you can escalate a trick, how you show people something. And then you one up that, and you one up that, and you keep one-ing it up until.
Well,
it's
and Copperfield's the one that like made like the space shuttle disappear, right?
Yeah.
And like appear someplace else.
Yeah. And those are things that were, kind of like TV show trickery as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of, they use that kind of stuff in a way. And, that was a precursor to that. So that's a little bit less of illusion-based stuff. One thing I really like about the Penn and Teller illusions, I love the tricks where they reveal the tricks.
Yeah, that is cool. Like when they
do
explain,
so many, where they reveal how it's done, but it's still magical. You're impressed by the skill of it.
Yeah, because they're and that's the thing is like even if you know how a trick is done, actually pulling it off takes an inordinate amount of skill.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there have been times where I've taught myself how to do a magic trick. Can't do it, even though I know how to do it. And that's I think that is the really cool, unique element about these guys is that they've dedicated, hours to be able to do like the sleight of hand to get that card out of the deck or to show you your card. And it is pretty amazing that they've honed their skills that well.
Oh yeah, and some of these magicians have the sleight of hand is incredible. I mean, the dexterity they have and some of the things they're able to accomplish, it's just phenomenal how that can happen. I think there's a certain I don't know, je ne sais quoi, the French call a certain I don't know what, a certain characteristic about the way that a magician portrays his act. Like, what do you pick? Piff the Magic Dragon. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's the driest comedian. He comes out in a plush dragon outfit.
I'm not familiar with him, but he sounds like he's right up my alley.
Oh, yeah, he's phenomenal.
Piff?
He comes out...
Piff
the Magic Dragon. He comes out in a plushy, kind of a footy pajama dragon outfit. He's like, hello, my name is Piff. You may know my brother.
He sounds like he's British.
Yeah, he is. He's like, you may know my brother, Steve. Like, you think he's going to say Puff, but I mean, he's so dry and witty, and he does a good job. That's his shtick. Yeah. Teller made such a cool choice early on in his career by not talking, and he said, when I can engage an audience more when I don't talk. They're focused solely on what I'm doing, and they're not focused on the banter. And also, it's hard to heckle somebody who isn't going to respond to you. And so, I mean, picking that choice, David Copperfield, David Blaine, Chris Angel, they all have a certain, kind of shtick that they do. And I think that half
that
of...
shtick is, I mean, that's a big part of the act.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you're paying attention to that.
If you can't like the person, if you can't like the character and the act that they've created, the magic's secondary. You're not going to pay attention to that. You're not going to get behind it. I saw David Copperfield live, and I felt he had a certain kind of arrogance to him.
Well, no, and Copperfield always has like the beautiful assistant.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's an element to it as well. Like where you're focused in on her when he's he's doing some
Well, here's the thing. I follow magic and I know a lot about magic. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I'm saying I've dabbled enough in it where I can look at a trick and try to figure out what they did. And I saw Copperfield live, and there was a few times, like, I sat there and I was like, oh yeah, I know how he does this. Oh, okay, yeah, he did this. Oh, I saw the trick there. Yeah. There was a few times I had no idea. Yeah. No idea. And I thought that's refreshing when somebody who kind of looks for that. When I go to a stage production, I direct things and I act.
Yeah.
I'm overly critical and I look at the little elements. So magic the same way. I'm like, oh no, they should have did that different. When they're still able to fool me, I think that's cool. Yeah. Penn and Teller fool us. They have a kind of a game show, almost like on America's Got Talent, and magicians come on and they perform and they try to fool them. When you're able to fool two magicians that have been in the industry for 80 years, combined. holy cow! Like
Yeah.
when you take that knowledge and you're able to pull one over on them, I mean, that just shows you how incredible Magic can be as far as developing and creating new tricks and things like that. It's pretty neat.
Well, and with new technologies and what you can do with them, and it's amazing.
And a lot of times it's so interesting. Some of the coolest tricks are the simplest gimmicks. Like, I mean, just something you make with a piece of tape and a pair of scissors at home. You know, you don't have to have all this stuff. And some of it's sleight of hand. Some of it's mathematics based. It's just kind of a neat thing. I enjoy me some Magic. I know a lot of people that hate Magic. Sarah, my girlfriend, she does not care for Magic.
Why is that?
She feels it's deceptive. And I'm like, well, yeah. You go in. I hope that you go in expecting it's not real.
Yeah.
But like, she doesn't like being fooled, and then she also wants to know the answer.
Well, but you're not really being fooled because you know something's going on.
Well, but she doesn't know what, and so she thinks she's being lied to. That somebody's not telling her how they do it. And I'm like, well, Sarah, but that's the joke. If somebody came to you and said, I'm going to have you pull a card out of the deck. Coincidentally, all 52 cards are the same card, but you don't know that. Here's, you picked one. I know exactly what your card is because they were all the same.
Yeah.
Well, that's a terrible trick because you know how it's done now. And if right after the trick I tell you, it kind of takes that wonder away from you trying to figure it out.
You did it that way. Yeah. No,
exactly. And that's what she wants. And I'm like, I kind of like the mystery. And that's why it's refreshing when I see a trick I don't know how it's done. Because I am inquisitive. I'm like, oh, how did they do that? And I try to, think about it and figure it out. And that's a cool.
So have you ever went to any like Magic shops and bought your own Magic kits?
I was in Dallas, Texas once and went to a Magic shop. It's the only Magic specific shop I'd ever been to in this little mall, and I bought these trick pocket knives, and they were different colors, and you were able to change the colors of them and things like that. And I remember going through airport security, and they flagged me because I had 2 pocket knives and I forgot about them.
Okay.
And so somebody from the conference that we were at is like, I'll have them shipped to you right down to your address. I'll take them. You don't have to take, because they wouldn't let me take them or check them or do anything.
Yeah.
And they never sent them to me. So they kind of stole
those
my pocket knives.
Stores.
Yeah.
That's awful.
The worst.
So, like, because the decks of cards where all 52 cards are the same card. Do you have to buy 52 decks of cards and pull those cards out, or do they sell the decks of cards like that?
Usually, you wouldn't have that trick, And the thing is like most magicians, I think if you're like a card magician, you probably have 10 decks of cards loaded on your body.
Yeah,
and you pull out a different deck or things like that. Like I can take a deck of cards that is set up for a very specific trick, and then after I'm done with that trick, I can then do another trick that requires no setup, and so it makes it look like the same deck of cards. And so I might take a trick deck that's all set up, and I do a trick, and then somebody's like, well, let me see that deck, do another trick, and I'm like, okay, and I do the trick that doesn't require it. Otherwise, you could take out a coin, you could take out a fork, you could do a different trick, put the cards in your pocket, take a different deck out of another pocket, and they think it's the same deck. Yeah. And so it's preset and it's kind of set up. Not all magicians would do it that way, but most people aren't going to take the deck of 52 cards. Usually use those as plans. You might have 52 jacks or 51 jacks all around the room. Yeah. And then, the 51st, and then you're like, John, pick an object in the room. And you're like, that picture frame. And you're like, well, behind that is your card. And you can make it amazing that way. But that's kind of lame Magic.
Well, but so like a Magic store, do they have 52 different decks of cards where it's like, I'm really feeling the 3 of diamonds this week. I'd really like that to be my deck of cards. Can you go into a Magic store and buy like a deck?
They might usually. I think
specific card.
I think with the online prevalence, you could do it. Now, I've bought decks of 52 of one card, and I'm sure that they have somebody that takes 52 decks and then sorts them all through, or they have a agreement with Bicycle or a company to just print those decks specifically. But yeah, you can buy them like that.
Do you put that in your card drawer with the other cards and like?
Yeah, whoops. Everybody
we're
with the
poker,
first game of poker, they all have 4 aces. Yes. Like, oh my goodness,
what is going on?
Or they have
a magic trick.
Yeah, it's good. I don't know. I think Magic isn't as corny as some people think it is. Like, I think it gets the stigma that it's just kind of, rabbits and white rabbits and hats kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's a certain style of magic. Then you have the close up, then you have the mind freaky stuff, then you have the, more artistic Penn and Tellery kind of edgy stuff. And I think there's different styles, and I think new styles will form. I know Penn and Teller were on SNL a season, and one interesting thing about their performance, the rope trick where you cut a rope and you cut it into multiple pieces, and then all of a sudden it's restored.
Yeah.
They did that same trick with a snake, a live snake.
All right.
And so they cut the snake and then cut it again, and then the snake restored itself into a piece.
Uh-huh.
And they got hate mail.
How'd they do it?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
It's a secret. I don't want to be kicked out of the Magic Castle that I'm not involved with.
Secret.
But they got hate mail. Another trick they did on that same show stop it. Another trick they did on that same show, Teller died in a tank of water. He drowns. Like, as part of the trick, part of the narrative, he drowns on the trick.
Yeah. Okay.
They wheel him away, and during the closing SNL scene where they all come out, the actors, Teller doesn't come out. They leave him dead. And nobody sent hate mail about that. But the snake, where they clearly didn't hurt the snake because they wouldn't have been, that got hate mail. And so it's amazing how, I think that's a good example of how if something can invoke those types of emotions, I mean, that's like any other thing you see, the shock value on TV or, those types of things. You can do cool stuff with illusions. And do it for good reasons. I have no problems with mentalists, fortune tellers, and stuff like that when they're not taking advantage of people. If you're telling me, and personally, I don't buy into I'm talking to someone otherworldly and I'm talking to your deceased relative. I don't buy into that because I've seen so many people that have done it to take advantage of people.
Yeah.
If there are people that can do that, they've not come forward, or I've not seen them personally. It kind of seems like they're taking advantage, and
maybe
that's
your
why
dead
it gets a bad
relatives just
rap.
don't want to talk to you.
That's true. Maybe they're like, well, we left this world so we could get away from Josh, so that's what we're doing.
That's what they told me.
Do you really think that's
what they told me? Yeah.
Oh, you can.
Yes,
you can do that. I think it's fascinating, the psychology of magic tricks in general. I watched a mentalist one time, and he described how they use nonverbals and things of that nature to get people to do certain things, And so, like, he gave the example where he said, I want you to think of, two simple shapes. Think of two simple shapes, and okay, so you got. Don't think of a square. Like that's a simple shape, but don't think of that one. I already said that. So you got a simple shape, and you might. So I want you to put one of those shapes inside of another shape.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
All right. Was one of the shapes a circle?
Yeah.
Was one of them a triangle?
Yeah.
Was a triangle in the circle?
No.
Oh, so it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so what he said is, and in that trick, I mean, it's hard when you're doing a podcast, but he did signals with his hands of a triangle, and he did a signal with a circle, and subconsciously, you kind of get those.
Yeah.
He removed the square, which is a typical shape.
Yep.
And those kind of things, it's easy to manipulate people when you have those types of tricks in your pocket.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that those things are happening.
Now, there is a great South Park regarding that.
Oh, the John Edwards?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where Stan becomes like a, yeah.
We're like, oh, is there an F? Is there a L? Is there a W?
There is!
Oh, goodness. James Randi had a television show where he did that same thing, and he had them record the session, and he went over the session and told the guy, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but the guy, was talking about the session. He's like, well, do you feel the session was good? He's like, yeah. The person gave me a great reading. He's like, do you feel that they hit most of the targets? Do you feel that there was any guesswork there? Absolutely not. He got the transcript and was like, do you realize that they said 38 different names and that you only responded to 2 of them? And that they said, and he went through all these stats and was like, there's no way. And he asked the guy, does this change your opinion? He's like, no, because I know that she was reading. And I think a lot of it's the wand.
Yeah.
And when you prey upon people's emotions like that, that's where it gets really shady.
Yeah, there's that sense of loss that you're trying to like fill when you're talking to those people, and so you want to believe. You want to believe that your loved one is trying to talk to you from beyond.
I wonder at what point, because I don't want to say these people are all doing things for malicious reasons, but let's say that they really think they have a power. At what point do they cross over to that to think, because a lot of them might think, okay, I am getting these letters, and it might be just their brain running through alphabet, and then they pick a name, and then that's not it. Okay, another name. And I wonder if they're fooled by their own...
Yeah, do you think any of those people are like, they're defrauded by their own fraud?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of, I wonder if
Like they start to believe their own cooking?
Well, John, I want to end the show by showing you a magic trick.
Okay.
I'm going to make myself disappear. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to Pop Culture Problems. We'll see you next time.
Holy crap, where did Josh go?
Here I am.
Hey.